There's a version of success that so many of us have been taught to chase. We achieve more, we work harder, we keep pushing, improving ourselves. And so many high achieving people arrive at this quiet realization that even though they've built a beautiful life on the outside, internally they might feel disconnected, exhausted, or unable to fully rest inside of it. So what happens when those patterns that helped you achieve and succeed might also be the very patterns that are keeping you disconnected from yourself? Today's conversation is about nervous system safety, ancestral patterns, leadership, healing, and redefining success in a way that actually feels sustainable, nourishing, and alive. Hey, hey, Soul Tribe. I am so excited for our special guest today. She is a beautiful human being and a dear friend of mine. Her name is Vanessa Calderón. She's a Harvard-trained physician. Yes, ma'am, Harvard-trained, a leadership expert and a healer who blends neuroscience, psychology, and ancestral wisdom to help leaders and entrepreneurs create meaningful success without sacrificing their well-being. As a first-generation Latina American with roots in indigenous healing traditions from Mexico and El Salvador, Vanessa brings science and spirituality in a deeply grounded and practical way. After experiencing burnout herself early in her medical career, she developed an evidence-based approach to sustainable success that has helped hundreds of professionals heal, grow, and lead with more clarity, intention, and heart. Her work focuses on nervous system regulation, identity transformation, conscious leadership, and expanding our capacity to hold success, joy, rest, and impact without self-abandonment. Welcome, welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you, sweet friend.
I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah, ditto.
Oh, I adore you and love you. And I feel like I have met you in this beautiful, like queen blossoming era. The first time I met Vanessa was at a conference, and she was just so vulnerable in her contemplations. And immediately I was like, she was like a magnet. I was gravitated to her for her strength and softness at the same time. And getting to know her over all of these years has been such a beautiful witnessing of this incredible healer on the inside and out who is making such a beautiful impact, and getting to watch her, so many of her gifts unfold. And I actually just wanted to start there with you, because I think that a lot of people who plug in and connect already are in that stage where they've figured out how to have the family or the relationship or the business or the practice that they want. And they find themselves turning inwards at a moment of self-exploration and opening up more and more to relationship within themselves and all of the gifts that that brings. And I think that you're such a great example of weaving so effortlessly your intuition, your healing, not only like from like coaching and cognitive emotional tools, but also creating space for mystery, for mysticism, for things beyond what we can know and measure. And I want to know, how did you arrive where you're so comfortable, like navigating between those gifts that you have?
It's definitely a good question. And I like the way you asked it by saying, how did you arrive? Because in it implies that I wasn't always there. And I think that that's true. I think I'll tell you, and Sadie, you probably have some parallels here from what I'm going to share. But as a young child, I'd always been deeply connected to the mystic, to mysticism, spirituality, mysticism. As a young child growing up in the United States, the way that was interpreted was through religion. And I grew up in a home that was very philosophical, parents who were mystics and who were indigenous healers, from Mexico and Central America, from El Salvador. And so I always had access to all of this, conversations about the earth and where we come from and the stars and the moon and our relationship to the land, for example. That was my dinner time conversations, or the conversations I would have with my dad, for example, when we would walk the dogs. So it wasn't necessarily foreign to me, but I think what we navigate, or at least what I had to navigate, was seeing that as like my lived reality, and then pushing against that as I go through like my becoming years of my teens and like my formative years in my early 20s, mainly because it was hard for me to navigate that world and the world of the world of thinking that I needed to prove myself. In all honesty, who do I need to become? What degrees do I need to get? How do I show people that I'm good enough, smart enough, all those types of things. And so there was sort of this journey of pushing away from all of that. And I guess now that I reflect on it, I'm reflecting on this out loud actually as I'm talking to you. There is this beautiful arc, like a hero's journey, I guess, this arc of understanding who I am and really like moving away from that to deeply come home. It's like the book The Alchemist, which is one of my favorite books, where the story takes him all the way around the world, really just to come home. And really because he needed to take the journey to get to know himself to come home. That's the whole point of the book. I hope that was not a spoiler alert for anyone who has read it. But point is, that's like all of us, we take these deep journeys of understanding and knowing. And for me, it required many, many degrees, a lot of trips. And without knowing, I was deeply drawn to some of the most energetically powerful sites in the world, like, for example, the Egyptian pyramids or the Easter Island heads, Rapa Nui, all of these places, Stonehenge, that I visited in my early 20s by myself. I would take these trips by myself because I really cared and wanted to visit the world, and that's where I would go. And so I guess all that to say that I still was really skeptical. And I actually believe, and I feel really, really blessed that I was raised with really healthy skepticism, because I see true skepticism as being curious and being open-minded, as opposed to cynicism, which is the sense of closed-mindedness. And so I was raised with a healthy skepticism. My dad, again, is a mystic, and he is incredibly skeptic. And so we see the world and we question it and we examine it from all of these different angles. And honestly, it is so incredibly fun now that I think about it. So after going on that entire journey, what I started to do is come home. I'm on this big journey. I start coming home to myself. And the more I came home to myself, what it required a lot of, healers need to do a lot of their own healing as part of their work. And so for me, it required a lot of intergenerational, ancestral trauma, that type of healing work. And there were times where I was in what felt like a deep, dark cave. And I knew that that was my journey. And I chose to keep going in, keep healing, and when I think about healing, I sort of think about it as clearing. You're clearing the stuff that's there to make you more of a clear, I guess I'd call it a mirror, more of a clear mirror for the people that you're helping and that you're supporting. And what I have now experienced, and by the way, this is a journey I will be on for the rest of my life. It's just because I'm here now doesn't mean I've cleared everything, but I will be on this journey for the rest of my life. But what it has done for me is it's brought me home to a place where I can say that I know myself today more than I've ever known myself before. And I know that there's still so much more to get to know, but I know myself so deeply and I love myself so deeply and I accept myself so deeply. And being in this place, what it has done is I've just been able to open up these really beautiful, I'd call them like a spiritual or mystical gifts that I think many people have access to, but I think they are closed off out of, things, fear, disbelief. I mean, walking this three-dimensional world that we walk and knowing that people are telling you, that's crazy, that's bananas, where's the science behind that? And you and I are both scientists, and so we weave this world of wanting to know the science and being so curious and from a place of like really just deep curiosity and fascination, not because we don't believe, but just because we're deeply curious. And what I've come to understand is that science doesn't have the tools yet to catch up to everything that we have experienced all around us. And that is why we will continue to experience science evolving all of the time, because science is actually catching up to the mysteries of the world. The mysteries of the world will always exist and are always many steps ahead of science. For example, gravity existed before we could prove gravity was a thing, and for example, quantum physics existed. The concept of like splitting these atoms and these two things being interrelated, even though they were way across the world, that existed before we had the word quantum physics. But quantum physics was created to explain those phenomenon. And that's what's happening right now, that we're experiencing this new sort of awakening of consciousness. science is trying to catch up, which is why they created the field of positive psychology to catch up to everything that we've been experiencing. And so when you say, how did you arrive? I guess I'll say it's a journey that I'm still on. And also what I have come to understand is that it takes a deep level of self-belief. Like I meditate every morning. I sit in my meditation and I'll get these intuitive hits or these senses or experience something. And in the beginning, when this would happen, I'd be like, what the heck? And now I'm like, what a blessing. Thank you, divine. Thank you. This is, and so to be able to feel peace while I walk this planet, peace on this earth, it's a huge blessing.
That's such a beautiful answer. There's so many things I want to respond to in that. I totally agree with you. I think that science and magic are two sides of the same coin. And exactly like you said, we don't like yesterday's magic is today's science, like exactly like you said, right? And so mystical, this gravity thing, and then we have words and now it's just science and it's almost mundane and we take it for granted and we kind of lose the awe of the natural world or the supernatural phenomena that we see here on the physical plane. Yeah, I love that way that you don't separate the two. They are just two sides of the same experience, but with different language and different mechanisms and how they influence each other. Is it that our experience is fluid and it shapes the container of science around it as this co-creation and co-dynamic? I think is so beautiful. I also love what you said about this being an ongoing journey, because I think that sometimes we believe that if we're still doing healing work on ourselves and somehow we're not of service to those around us because we're not good enough or healed enough or wise enough. And really, I love the way that you describe it as more of a clearing than a healing. Because I think sometimes language is limited and words are so important. And it's like, if I believe that I have to heal myself from something, then I'm also maybe inherently telling myself that that thing is wrong or bad or needs to be fixed, or that there's some judgment about it that is separate than me. And I love the way that you reframe it as allowing ourselves to be a more clear or translucent mirror to those around us, to ourselves, to the information that's always coming our way and that we are talking to. And I think that's such a beautiful reframe that is inclusive of our humanity and the things that we're always walking with, that we're always evolving with. That's beautiful. And I wanted to ask you, you were talking about sitting in meditation and getting pings and downloads. And it occurred to me, thinking about us talking, that some people might be in tune with their intuition and they don't even know it. I was that way. I didn't even know it until I was in this more sisterhood relationship with you and could realize that some of the things I was experiencing was truly a co-creation with something greater than me. So how, in practical terms, in case someone can see themselves in you, how does your intuition speak to you?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think this is a really good question. And I would love to just have a conversation about all of the different ways that it can show up, because what I have come to see is that when people's intuitive gifts start to come back online, and I say come back online because many people had them as young kids and then they get turned off. Fear, survival, all of the things that we need to do to navigate this world. And then when they start turning back on again, they can feel scary. I have worked with many women who tell me, oh, I'm in a room and all of a sudden I feel something, like I feel the other person's feeling, and then their face is like so afraid and they don't know what they're saying and they don't even want to say that out loud because it feels scary. Because what does this mean about you? Because will other people understand you? Will somebody just say you're crazy? Is this all in your head? All of those types of things. And so I guess I just want to name, and this again is why it's so important to trust yourself. It's so important to slow down and to just be curious about what you're experiencing and start to slowly trust yourself and really find a community of people that you can have this conversation with and can validate your experience. So, or at least hold space for your experience without judging it. That's the most important thing, because when our gifts start to turn back online, if we're constantly being judged, they're just going to close back up again, because we have a really strong mind. God bless the human brain. It keeps us alive. It keeps us safe. God bless the human brain. And it's very strong. Its job is to keep us alive and do it as efficiently as possible. And it will do whatever it takes, including turning off things that feel scary, that feel like it's going to put you in a little hole or isolate you. And so all that to say is there are many ways that you can start experiencing your intuition turn back on. So let's just go to the basics. What is intuition? Intuition, I think, is a communication that you have with your inner sage, your inner wise woman, if you're a woman, or your highest self. And if you can imagine just slowly, quietly slowing down and just like asking a question and just being quiet and just see what question comes to you, what answer comes to you, or you have a gut feeling, or you sort of know, what is that? Those are intuitive hits. Those are beautiful intuitive hits that are coming to you. And the more we slow down and the more we start to trust those intuitive hits, the more and more they come online, because there's a beautiful reciprocal relationship with the more we trust, the more they open up, the more they communicate with us. And so what's happening is we are now shutting off the thinking brain and we are in communication with the divine brain, or call it whatever you want, with the soul brain, the divine brain, the conscious mind, whatever feels like it resonates with you. And I say that very thoughtfully, because this isn't a conversation about specific words or language or saying that what you believe is wrong or you have to believe what I believe. I'm not here to prove myself to anybody, and I don't want to change anybody's mind. If you are curious and you are open, go and try this for yourself. That is the only way to know for sure, is for you to have that experience for yourself. I'm not sitting in some ivory tower. I'm not some whatever, like telling you like this is the only way. I want you to experience things for yourself. And I think that is the deepest magic possible, when you start to experience your own intuitive hits for yourself. Okay, so how can they come online? I think the most common is what's called clairsentience. It's the ability to sense what other people might be feeling in a room. And so this might be, oh my gosh, how many intuitive, brilliant women I know that have this, that don't know that that's what it is. You can step into a meeting, for example, and you know when someone's angry, you know when someone's upset, or you're on a call with your mom and all of a sudden something changes and you're like, oh shit, like what just happened, you know? Like you can sense these types of things, so people's moods, and how it works in your favor is you're able to navigate certain words, say certain things, hold certain space to calm people down. And maybe you have a label that you've given yourself as a people pleaser, and you know how to access people pleasing tendencies to get people to calm down. And maybe that was something that supported you a long time ago, but you don't have to have that label to have clairsentience. But clairsentience, I think, is the most common. So it could be that you just sense how people are feeling, or you could physically feel in your body what other people are feeling. So it could show up like Saidie and I are having a conversation and Saidie's deeply heartbroken and I feel a discomfort in my chest. And so, for example, the way it shows up for me with my coaching clients is they'll be saying something and I'll sense, I know exactly, I can sense usually what they're going to say next or what they're going to feel. And so I'll say, so where do you feel this in your body? And if they can't access, then I'll say, do you feel anything in your stomach? And they'll be like, oh yeah, you know, how did you know? And so I don't tell my clients usually that I can feel what they're feeling, but the point is that that's clairsentience, and that's an intuitive gift. And so the language, the labels, maybe they matter to you if you care about them, but what matters more is what you're sensing and feeling in your body. So one is, can I sense what people are thinking, feeling? That's one. Another one can be clairvoyance. I think of the clair gifts, that might be the sexiest of the clair gifts. At least people think it is, because, I don't know, the visions, the ability to like, you know, see things, and that can show up very differently for a lot of people. That is having what we call, kind of in the mystical world, a really wide open third eye. Third eye is an energetic center. It's labeled from the chakra centers from way back, I don't know, thousands and thousands of years ago. It comes from India. And so the third eye center, when you have that wide open, there's an ability to know specific things. And people will say, how'd you know that? And you're like, oh, I don't know. I just know. How did I know? Like, you're driving down the road. This is what I typically see. You're driving down the road and you're like, there's going to be a parking up there. And people might be in the car. They'll be like, no, take this spot right now. There's not going to be a parking. You're like, I know there's going to be a parking, and you keep driving and there's a parking spot. How did you know that? Okay. So, and you may not be able to explain it. I remember I spoke to somebody who's a very gifted clairvoyant, and I was like, how in the world did you know that? She was saying things to me that there's just, there's just no way anybody would have known this thing she was saying to me. So I was like, how'd you know? And her answer was like, how do I know anything? I don't know. How do I know? And so I think that's the gift of clairvoyance. And so there's a bunch of other intuitive hits. There's sensing things with your body. So people that have started experimenting or are curious about Reiki or energy healing, from conversations I've had with people that are in the early stages of doing that work, they tend to start feeling things in their body. So they'll like feel energy in their hands, for example. They'll feel heat in their hands, and they'll say, whoa, that's great. I feel this energy in my hands. And they've done double-blind placebo controlled studies on Reiki and energy healers. And the energy healers will put hands, like their patients will have their eyes closed, and they'll put just their hands over specific parts of the body, and the patient will feel like they're touching them. And they do this with somebody that's trained in Reiki versus someone who's not. That's the control. And so the patients will put, the other practitioner will put their hands on the control person that has no training, and they won't feel anything. The Reiki person puts it on, they're like, whoa, I feel this, or I feel that, And so it's an energetic feeling in your body where you can feel heat, or some people call it tingling, that you feel in your hands. I mean, I'm going to stop there, but there's many different ways. But I think that for you, if you're interested and you're curious, am I connected to my intuition, is to start making time and space for you to really connect to your intuition. The way your intuitive gifts will start to open up is when you slow down enough to listen to them.
Thank you. I think that's so helpful for people listening, because I think that, I mean, I believe that we're all born with the ability to commune. And exactly like you said, we're not taught how to use it, or we shut it down. And I think probably people unknowingly are using it all the time, but when we don't recognize it for what it is, we don't have that opportunity to build the relationship with ourselves of self-trust. And I think that's such an important word to keep coming back to on this journey, no matter how it looks, whether it's in burnout or intuitive development or your career or your leadership or your relationship. It all comes back down to the truth of who you are, the truth of how you experience yourself, and being open to more containers through which to know yourself. So maybe this particular one is intuition, and that just being aware of it. And I think obviously what you said of slowing down and creating that relational space to yourself is such a beautiful way to allow that to be nurtured and to have some play with it and experience it. And just without, like you're saying, not being in your mind about what does it look like, and is it supposed to look a certain way, and what is it? And I think sometimes that's what limits us from experiencing it, because we hear other people's stories or hear about their visions or what they're hearing or other things. And not all of us have access, to all of the gifts in the very beginning. And I think that our own judgments of our own self can interrupt that nurturing, spacious playfulness through which we can start to open up to one. And then I think, I would imagine, the more that you nurture the ones that you feel most connected to, the more the others become accessible.
Yeah, things will come online when they're supposed to come online. And the more you have belief about them, the more they will come online. One of the things that I have seen in sort of the steps to this journey of your sort of intuitive gifts coming back online, the step one is really like fear. Is this really happening to me? I can't believe this. I can't tell anybody about it. This feels so weird. And I remember for me, I wouldn't even tell my husband. I'm like, this stuff is bananas. Like, I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. And I felt safe talking to my mom and dad just because of the way I was raised. And so I slowly started to open up, and they were, of course, like, of course, of course. And so then I slowly started feeling safer and safer and safer to talk about it. So that's sort of like step one. You have a lot of fear. Step two is this sort of like, I'm going to say the word ego, just because we have a lot of limitations with words, but I'm going to say the word ego. A lot of people, when they hear the word ego, they think arrogance, like, oh, my ego is so big. But ego is anything that is centering that is centering the person, the human, right? So like, so the flip side of the arrogance is like, oh, but why me? How can this be happening to me? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough to have these gifts turned on for me. So the first one is like fear, step one. And then the second phase is like the ego turning on, being like, but why me? Or how is this? And the truth is, it's not just you. So I'll just tell you that now. It's like hundreds and thousands of people walking this planet, which gives me so much solace in all honesty, because we need a lot of open-hearted, unconditional loving, compassionate souls walking this planet to continue to help the world continue to heal and transition into whatever level of consciousness we're going to next. And one person can't do it alone, as much as we think we're so important, like we need everybody doing the work with their different gifts in the different ways that they're doing them. Everybody needs to do them. And we meet people at different levels of consciousness. I'm jumping around a little bit. Some folks that are like me and you, we're curious. We meet somebody at a higher level of consciousness, and now we can elevate a little bit. But there's going to be people that are too skeptical, that need data and science. And so we need to meet them at a different entry point, which is why everybody matters. All the work that everybody's doing matters. But so phase two is really that ego, why me? And then phase three is like, interesting. Ooh, maybe this is happening. Ooh, let me just be more open. And then from there, it's just this beautiful waterfall. Phase four, phase five, phase six is just opening up, being curious, letting it come to you. And then you have so much fun as it continues to open up. And then you realize, wow, it is true that I'm just kind of the spiritual being in direct communication with some sort of higher consciousness, divine, walking this planet. And call it God. If you are someone that has a deep relationship to a God, call it God. Call it whatever you want, but it's higher consciousness that we're deeply connected to. And some people say, I see God in nature. I see God in this. Yeah, it's in everything that we look at and see, because of course we're blessed beings, and we're surrounded and supported by benevolent spirits.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful reminder just about the awe of life, and really to remember how sacred each one of us are, our planet is, each other, despite all of the labels we give to each other. And I mean, I think for high achieving people or highly capable people or people who want to do good in the world, they want to create an impact, sometimes you can feel so myopic on that contribution, on that way that you're helping the world, that I think that part of our disconnect is disconnecting with what you just said, just the reverence of God in everything, the God in this cup of coffee, the God in, or call it whatever you want, the awe, the wonder in this breath, in these words, in this pulse, And I think that it's hard to do because, I mean, the beginning of this conversation, like, how did you arrive to this place, was this contrast between the measurable, the known, the degrees, the output, the, how many lives can I impact, or how can I help society? And that which is unknown, that which is internal, that which is intrinsic. And from our historical construct, from our cultural, little pocket in this world, I think it sets up this duality through which I think a lot of people find themselves going through. But I think it's such an important and beautiful reminder to invite us to, yes, continue to do the beautiful things you're doing in this world, and to serve and to love and to give, and to create that time and space, not just for development of your intuition, but development of reverence with all that is in the simplicity of just simply being alive. So just thank you for that reminder to return to home, and to a larger home within everything.
Yeah, it can all be so much more simple than we make it. And I think the complexity is part of the journey, I think. Thinking
Yeah.
that everything is so complex, and questioning everything and trying to find the answers. And there's got to be more, it's got to be deeper. What's the purpose of life? All those types of things. We make it so complex, and God bless the complexity, like we make
Yeah.
it so complex,
Yeah.
only to come home to this beautiful simplicity where the answers are so simple. The answers are
Yeah.
always in gratitude, in breath, in slowing down. That will always make you, even for like you and I, we're ambitious women. We work in really like high stakes environments, you know. And on this we have this other thing that we do on the side on top of everything that we do for, you know, like we know that even for us, slowing down, the breath, gratitude, what that opens up for us or makes available for us is innovation. It makes available for us to be more creative, to be in flow, which makes us more productive, to trust ourselves, which means we're not wasting time double guessing and questioning things, to make us open to receiving, which makes it easier for us to create our desires. And so, you know, all of that is kind of the language of manifestation a little bit. And often people talk about manifestation mainly to manifest the physical because, you know, I think in this three-dimensional world, we think that that's what really matters. How can I have more money, a better car? Beautiful, great. If that's your desires, great. No judgment. And there's so much more that's available to us with all of this. And so to know that the simplicity of slowing down, of gratitude, of the breath, it makes so much possible for us in the most beautiful, joyful ways.
Yeah, I was literally thinking the same thing as you were saying it. Like, to me, it brought up the idea of non-attachment, but when you're so present with whatever it is that you have, but seeing the reverence in it and the beauty of it, it's like such a relaxed, flowing state of surrender and of trust. Like everything else is just for the joy of it, is for the freedom of it, is for the abundance of it. It's like, sure, I'm going to try to get this thing, but like, if I get it, it's just the sprinkles on top of this beautiful experience that I have. And it does release the pressure off of attaining it, doing it, and really allows you to be open to the experience of it, who you become in the attaining of it or working towards it in just such this relaxed way that allows you to be open to the fullness of life. And not saying that that makes life easy and it makes it things like rainbows and sunshine, but just saying that it even allows you to find the beauty in the pain and the suffering in the challenging moments, because it is life. It is part of that reverence of life.
Yeah, I think that is one of my active practices is asking myself, where else can I surrender? And I will just name, you know, I've been practicing these things for a long time, and it's still a practice because as much as I know what it feels like to surrender, I know the active practice of surrendering. I have an active practice of surrendering, even though all of that is true. There will still be times where I catch myself feeling hyper urgent, hyper vigilant, fast, fast, fast. What else can I? And then I have to be like, whoa, that's how I know that I've disconnected from myself when I get into those states. And so to come home and be like, wait a second, what do I need to surrender here? Because when you named attachment, it's usually rooted in fear. We're so afraid of, we're not going to get what we're so attached to. And it can look like helicopter mom. Like when I first had my kids, oh my gosh, we were at the park and oh, I don't want them to get hurt, you know? And as opposed to like letting them just be. Or it could look like we set a goal and now all of a sudden we're up later than we normally are. We get up earlier normally to work all these extra hours because we're so afraid to fail. All of that is attachment. And so if for all of you listening, if you're feeling any of that, to really ask yourself, what am I afraid of here? Because fear will always lead to these unintentional actions as opposed to love. Like, how can I let go? How can I trust myself? How can I trust divine or God, whatever you want to call it? How can I just surrender and trust that everything's going to be okay?
I love that. And I love that reminder that it is a practice. Just because you've healed something or known something or had an experience, like it doesn't erase being human and still being confronted with our very real human fears and urges and whatever. And we'll never be separate. That the point of this is to have both experiences at once, or like the invitation is to have both experiences at once, and not to shame it but just to be curious with it. And I love that you ask yourself a question instead of, I think what most people immediately do is just judge themselves for, like falling off the bandwagon or having a moment or etc.
I mean, let's be honest, there've been many years of me judging myself. That was like my MO. That's like many years of that. I've just realized like it's actually not very fun and doesn't feel very good. So I do my best not to do that anymore because it's just not as fun. And there's just so many other ways to get the outcomes that you actually desire and want that doesn't require the word you said earlier, which is self-abandonment, that doesn't require you being mean to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So this beautiful journey that you've walked and all of your evolution, the twists and the turns and the blossoming upon blossoming, where do you see the future going? And that could be open to whatever you feel intuitively called to answer, like whether it is our consciousness as humanity, whether it is the way that we are showing up as leaders, integrating both or more holistically our experience of self. Where do you feel called to help us lead into the future?
It's a beautiful question. I see where we are headed. We're headed down a path towards more and more human connection and authenticity. I think that's what everybody is craving. And the more and more AI becomes part of our lived experience, and it will continue to grow and be part of our lived experience, the more and more I think people are craving truth and honesty and integrity and authenticity. And I think that the one thing that AI will never be able to replace, and I think honestly never, although some people are going to be like, well, who knows, is human connection. Because AI can follow algorithms, but AI can't make like a heart-based choice. It can't feel into yes or no's or all these things. And so nothing can replace human connection. And I think the more and more people dive into AI, the more and more there's going to be an isolation epidemic again. And on the other side of that is going to require human connection and authenticity. And so I think there's really three things that we're moving towards, or the future is going to be calling us to create, which is human connection, authenticity, and love. I honestly think, I know this is going to sound a little basic, but love really is the path to where we're going, at least for all of us walking this planet. The reason why so many people that are accessing a lot of their intuitive gifts are able to do that is because they've been able to come home to a sense of self, and trusting yourself requires a compassion, acceptance, and love of yourself. And the more you can love, accept yourself, and trust yourself, the more your gifts start to open up. And the more they start to open up for you, if you are coming from a good heart, the more you'll be able to help guide other people there just by your ways of being. You don't have to go out there and tell them, do this step 1, 2, 3, just by your ways of being. And honestly, Saidie, I'll tell you, I think the way I will have the biggest impact in the world is just for me practicing my own self-love and self-compassion. I do this on large scales. I talk to rooms of 1,500 people. I hold coaching sessions with individuals or like groups of 15 to 20. I do this on so many different scales, and I know, and every time I do it, even before we started recording today, I grounded myself in unconditional love. Let me be love. Let me just be love, because I know that that's how I will have the biggest impact, is by me feeling it for myself, allowing it to come through me, and allowing other people to feel that. People tell me all the time, like, oh, your energy. And I'm doing my best to just like be a channel of love.
Yeah.
So if you feel something and you're magnetized towards me, you're magnetized towards love, and that's available to anybody and everybody. That's, I think, where we're going: human connection, authenticity, and truth and love.
Yeah. And I think it's so important that you say that too, because I think if we are all connected through energy, through consciousness, then not to underestimate each one of our ability or contribution to being connected with love, even if you never go out and serve people. Like, it doesn't matter what it looks like on the surface or what you see in the 3D of, like, maybe you're someone who, takes care of, I don't know, your aging parent or a cat, or you don't have children, or I don't know, making up you can say anyone in the world, but what is their unseen contribution to the overall energetic field around us, to the field of the planet, of humanity, just by them being a source of love and contributing and raising the vibrational frequency of the planet just by being love. And just because you can't measure it, going back to the conversation of what can we measure and how do we know? And being in this 3D world, being that science lags, being that our measurements, our understanding lags, we are limited in our understanding and measurement of impact. And I think what I'm taking from you saying that, of like you being a channel of love, is having contemplation and space for what is the immeasurable but very real and very tangible impact that goes beyond what we could know, at least in this year of 2026, to creating a more healthy or whole planet or humanity. And for each one of us to contemplate that, like, let that be more than enough of your life's contribution to be a walking energetic channel of love, or whatever you feel called to be. Maybe it's truth. Maybe it's, I mean, I think probably they all funnel back to the one umbrella of love with its many expressions: innovation, creativity, community, etc. But never to underestimate what it looks like on the outside, and to really know and honor what it feels like to be that embodiment of the frequency or the truth that you hold.
Wow. That just brought tears to my eyes. You know, you and I have talked about this offline, which is the concept of legacy. And I have never, I mean, over the last 10 years, it wasn't something that came into my consciousness, like, what's my legacy? And what I have realized is each of us are walking around this planet having a huge impact on everything we touch. It's like the butterfly effect, right? Every step you take, every right turn you make, anything, you're having an impact. So it's your choice if you're going to have a positive impact or a negative impact or a neutral impact, right? But you will have an impact. So if you're going to have an impact, that means every little thing you do can technically be part of your legacy. And if you think about, like, you know, you and I are doctors as our part-time job. No, I'm just kidding. Like, we're doctors on the side. But, you know, when we're with our patients, if you think about the most like meaningful connections you've had with patients, that there's things that like sometimes you won't even remember, but your patients will remember, you know? I had this guy that was my study buddy in college. He's now like this huge whatever. He also went to med school, does all these big things now. And he texted me the other day and was like, hey, listen to this episode at this time, you know, the minute mark 3:10 or whatever. And I listened to the episode. He wanted me to listen because he wanted me to hear the impact that I had on him in college. He was sharing about how he wanted to go to med school, but he wasn't doing really well. He didn't know how to study, all these things. And that he had this friend that would go to a coffee shop every day and would sit and would be like this and would do all these things, and she taught him how to study for organic chemistry. And he was like, and because of her, I learned how to study and I was able to do well on my MCAT and I was able to get into med school. And I was like, damn, like these impact we have on people we don't even know, which is why I think it's so fun and exciting to clear and be more of a channel of love and compassion and joy. Because then you can just walk around and be love, compassion, and joy. And that's the impact you can leave on the people around you. When you see them, look in their eyes, get to know them, let them know that they matter, shake their hand. Like all of those little things, you know, it's just so important. Okay, I just got a little preachy. But point is,
I love it.
it's just so beautiful to know that all we need to do is be a channel of love. That's so simple. I mean, it feels simple. I know it's not always in practice, but the more we slow down and the more we release and the more we surrender and the more we just ask divine to support us, like, please support me in being a channel of love.
Yeah, I love that. It's simple, but it's not easy. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Vanessa, for your love, for your wisdom. How can people work with you? I want the whole world to be more touched by your light and by your wisdom. Where can they find you?
I have a podcast. So if you like podcasts, you can find my podcast. It's called The Authentic Path with Dr. Vanessa Calderón. And you can find me on Instagram. It's where I primarily hang out, at Vanessa Calderón MD. There will be a link there to my website, vanessacalderonmd.com. But really, I would say if this stuff is kind of resonating with you, if you're interested in it, Saidie's an incredible teacher.
And how can people work with you? You do privates, you do groups?
Yeah, so I do private one-on-one coaching. And so if anyone's interested in really growing intentionally, whether it's in career, in business, in life, you can work with me one-on-one. You can find a consult link at my website, vanessacalderonmd.com. I run 2 healing circles a year. It's called Resource Wealth. It's really helping entrepreneurial women or mission-driven women that want to heal their relationship with money and power to really be able to store more wealth. And it's an incredible experience. It is so beautiful. The container is so beautiful. The next one is in the fall. You can also find that on my website. So, yeah, and I would love if you do end up following me, send me a DM on Instagram. I'd love to know how I can help you, what you're interested in, what I can create a podcast for you, any questions that you're swirling around your head. I'd love to help.
I love you. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for the expression of who you are and allowing it to be so fully radiant in this world. Is there anything else you want to share or feel? We can edit this part out.
Just
Okay.
deep gratitude to you. For those that don't know, Saidie is one of my sacred sisters. That's what I refer to her as. She's one of my sacred sisters. We have a really tight, beautiful container that we hold where we support each other, and it's beautiful. And so I wish that for all of you. I wish for all of you to have a container of men, women, anyone who sees you, who supports you, who celebrates you.
Same. Vanessa has been integral in the last few years, really understanding, being curious, being a safe space, teaching me and helping me connect and yeah, normalizing some of the shifts. So I really am so grateful for your friendship, for your sisterhood, for your leadership, for all the ways that you are loving and serving the world and making it a better place. Thank you for being a channel of love in all ways.
I receive.
Wishing you all play, possibility, and peace. Wishing you to feel so supported in this space. And I'm so honored to be a part of your soul tribe. Sending you love, and I'll see you next week. Bye.